Hey everyone, hope all is well. My name is Miles and I'm the Content Development Manager for CybSafe. And today I'm joined by Oz, who is CybSafe CEO and founder. Oz, great to be talking to you.
Miles, great to be here.
So, why PeepSec?
It's a great question, I guess, because other than the fact that it's an opportunity to talk about people and to talk about technology during London Tech Week, the fact of the matter is that a few years ago we thought we would try to do a little bit more than that. We spent a lot of time at CybSafe thinking about the interaction between people and technology, but we're conscious that it's not just security that this impacts. The reality is that there's so many great things that are going on in the world because of technology, and we just thought it'd be a really interesting opportunity to shine a light on that. Equally, there are so many not so great things that are going on in the world because of technology, and we wanted to maybe try to unpack that a little bit. London Tech Week is a fantastic festival of technology, of innovation, of opportunity, of challenge. It's a really great opportunity to just kind of look at technology in its various guises, and we just thought it was the perfect setting for a conversation that was very specific. What are the issues that emanate out of the intersection between people and security, and what kind of things can we tease out of those?
It's really good because often when we look at technology in the mainstream, it's always done quite separate to humans that use technology. People sometimes talk about whether technology is good or is it bad, but actually that is all dependent on the culture that uses it and the choices that people make when they interact with this technology. This year's topic is around the age of empathy. Why have we chosen to go with that in particular?
Empathy is really important in life in general. The fact of the matter is that if you can't put yourself in somebody else's shoes, you'll probably struggle to, appreciate, of course, what they're going through, but more importantly, appreciate the full context within which you're operating, just in life in general. But it's also really important that we recognize that that's also the case for technology, especially those of us who are technologists. Those people who are building the technology of tomorrow are effectively building a large chunk, if not the main part of the future. To do that without empathy is a challenge, but the fact of the matter is there are so many examples in which we can see people trying to be more effective at considering the impact on others, considering other people's perspectives, considering other people's needs, maybe even considering some of the things that other people may be going through without even realizing that they're going through it at the time. So we do believe that this is the age of empathy. This is the point at which those of us who have the opportunity to stop and think about what we want the world to be like later, this is the opportunity for us to do so in the context of other people. In the context of what they're going through, in the context of putting ourselves, or in a way in which we put ourselves in their shoes. That's why we chose the age of empathy.
And do you feel that, especially with the work that you do and us as a tribe at CybSafe, how do we put empathy at the forefront of what we do? What are the main considerations that we have to think about first before we do put anything forward?
CybSafe, of course, as you know, Miles, we are focused not just on cybersecurity, but very specifically on addressing the human aspect of cybersecurity. The human aspect of cybersecurity is all about understanding risk and understanding the part that we play as people within that. And of course, in the context of cybersecurity, that means the interaction that we have with technology. But the thing that often people miss is the fact that actually, if we don't do that in an empathetic way, we will not achieve our end goal. We won't achieve the things that we're trying to achieve. In many cases, when it comes to reducing risk, it's about changing behavior. The answer to changing or influencing behavior isn't just telling people what to do. It's not even just making it extremely difficult for them to do the things that you don't want them to do. It's about considering maybe why they're doing them in the first place. It's about thinking about the not just driving forces, but the restraining forces, or indeed the forces that actually, if we could shift, if we could alter, would make it significantly easier for them to take the steps we want them to take. So this is the way that sustainable behavior change is achieved. And in that particular case at CybSafe, that's really our focus. Whether it's building software that makes it really easy for people to get the help that they need when they need it, whether it's about thinking about the behavioral framework upon which all of our software is built, or whether that's just helping organizations understand the risk that they carry because of the way that their people behave, all of that is done in what we consider to be an empathetic way.
There's a lot of conversation around the polarization of society when we look at social media. I'm often interested in the fact that, technology has allowed us all to communicate with people we wouldn't normally meet. So on the one hand, you feel that's a great opportunity for building empathy, but on the other, 90% of how we communicate is tone of voice, body language, facial expressions, most of which does not exist in the way we communicate through technology because it's all text for the most part. So that can create this empathy gap. Where do you feel when it comes to developing technology to help people, where do you feel the biggest challenges are with creating empathy? What do you think the biggest barriers are in everything that we do?
Yeah, it's a great question because I think it is a challenge sometimes. Actually, a little bit like the real world, as it were. It's possible to sound empathetic, to say the right things that coming out of somebody else's mouth would be genuinely empathetic, but actually out of your mouth aren't. That's the truth of the matter. Empathy isn't really about actions and words. Empathy is about taking responsibility and actually genuinely giving caring. The fact of the matter is that there are lots and lots of examples of technology platforms that are really effective at what they do, but they don't consider the broader context. They don't consider the impact they're having on the individuals using them. They don't consider maybe the second or third order effects of maybe collecting data in that way, or of making building systems that aren't actually secure by design, etc., etc. This is the opportunity that we have, all of us, today. It's a choice, but it does require us to take responsibility, and it does require us to truly engage. And that, for me, is the gap that I see. If I was having a conversation with somebody that I met at a tube station or at a bus station, and they were to ask me how my day was, if they genuinely don't care about how my day is, if they genuinely don't care about how I am, despite the fact that they ask me how am I, then that's not being empathetic, or indeed even really engaging with me. That's just asking me some questions and paying lip service to maybe some niceties. That's not what we want to do with technology. The gap is responsibility, i.e., as a person or a team or a company who's building technology, taking responsibility for what that technology does, and then, of course, genuinely engaging. So in our particular case, how do we even know how people feel about whatever it is we're trying to help them do? In our particular case, be more responsible, to make better security decisions, improve their security attitudes. And then how do we help them in a way that's really beneficial for them? This is really important. I think it's really important because we're focused on security, but there are so many great technologists tackling so many of the world's really quite important problems. And as we've seen maybe with some of the big social media companies recently, there's some really great things that are being done that are actually, unfortunately, doing some really bad things at the same time. We need to do less of that.
Would you say that to have an empathetic approach with any technology that we work with is the same as having a humane approach? Or do you think there are some differences between that we should be mindful of?
I suspect somebody will pick me up for a lack of clarity over the definition between humane and empathy. But the truth is, I think there are some significant overlaps, without a doubt. There is something about kindness in the when I think of the word humane, which I think is absolutely similar when I think of the word empathy and being empathetic. There's something also about being deliberate as well. The truth of the matter is that humane treatment of another person is all about recognizing them as a human being, but also dealing with them in a way that reflects the fact that you yourself are a human being, and indeed, ideally, a good and positive one at that. But I also, like I said, there's some really great people who aren't that empathetic. And this is the other thing I think that's really important about this. This is not about being right or wrong. In fact, actually, some of the people I'm most fond of aren't particularly great at showing empathy. That's not to say that they're bad people. It's to say that actually they might need to consider what they do. But if you build technology, then you need to. In fact, we, as a society, need our technologists to be more empathetic. And so in that, as you say, being treated or being humane or treating people in a humane way is probably, there's enough of an overlap there for those things to be considered.
And also on the empathy piece, I always think about in the context of compassion. Professor Paul Gilbert from the Compassionate Mind Foundation once talked about, you might see someone drowning in a river, and you jump in after them because you have empathy, but you don't know how to swim. So now you're drowning as well, and you might be like, oh, I can really empathise with you. I can't swim as well. And so it's also the fact it's important not only to have empathy, but as you've mentioned, to be useful, because it builds resilience, and it means that when you come across problems, you're not just going to be empathetic to someone's pain and suffering or issues, but you're actually able to do something about it as well. So off the back of that, what are you most excited about in the grand scheme of things with technology, and based on previous PeepSecs where we've looked at the trends for the future, what are you most excited for, and what do you feel are going to be the things that really do help build this more empathetic society?
There's so much to be excited about when it comes to technology. We are sitting very blessed at a stage in, I guess, Earth's timeline where the accelerating pace of change is only increasing, and the fact is, whether or not one pins everything to Moore's law, which of course has been demonstrated to be slowing down, the fact of the matter is the rate at which we are identifying problems and the number of people who are turning their attention to try to address those problems and are able to do so in a way that is actually relatively low effort to get started has increased and is increasing every single day. So it's exciting to see if you're like me, you believe that technology has a really quite important part to play in solving many of these problems. It's exciting to see this being done at scale. Just the sheer scale of it excites me. It's also exciting because, just us having this conversation, Miles, and indeed all of these types of conversations that are going on around the world are being made accessible to all sorts of people in all sorts of places and at all sorts of times. And that, in many ways, only multiplies the amount of good that can be put towards addressing some of these problems and some of these challenges. I find all of those things exciting. Add on to that some of the latest developments in technology, whether or not we really truly grasp the potential of Web 3.0 is to be seen, whether or not we really truly understand what it looks like to achieve access to energy from alternate sources that are far more sustainable, do far less damage to the planet, cost a lot less, and indeed more importantly mean that many, many more people can receive the benefit from those. All of those things are massively exciting. But there are challenges that come with that, Miles. And those challenges are all addressable if we consider the impact of other people as well as the thing we're trying to achieve. And not just to consider the impact on other people that we're maybe necessarily the target for us or the focus for us, but the second and third order effects of what we're doing.
I like that. And it goes to the idea of the inspiration is a multiplier effect. People always think that if you show gratitude for someone, it's sort of a one-way system, but that might inspire them to do more things that then impact people like the person that was originally inspired. And so that is what society is. Going back to PeepSec as a whole then, we've spoken about the why and why it was set up. Where we are today and all the great guests that we've got coming on sharing their own experiences, what do you hope those watching are going to get out of an event like PeepSec?
PeepSec is deliberately a hodgepodge, I guess a patchwork quilt, I guess, to a degree. People from lots of different backgrounds talking about lots of different things. There are, of course, some themes in this particular case, in this particular year, the age of empathy being the theme that runs through it all. But ultimately, these are people who've either used technology to do some really great things, are currently in the process of trying to solve some really big challenges, or spend a lot more time thinking about some really rather specific challenges than many of us do in their particular areas. So hopefully there's something for everybody. If you're interested in solving big problems, if you're interested in what technology is being used for and some really exciting things of the future, or if you're just interested in understanding a little bit more about what it means to be a human being in this particular case, 2022, but actually really focused on how we as human beings make the most of the opportunity that technology presents, there's just so much there for you. I've really enjoyed the fact that on the one hand, we've got people thinking about how the future of work has changed and actually how we interact as human beings every day, doing some of the things that take up most of our time, literally going to work, achieving and being productive. I'm really excited about the fact that some of the people we're talking about are thinking about the way in which we might live in the future and indeed the changes that are taking place there. And I love the fact that some of the people that we have spoken to are thinking about some of the big problems that many, many governments and many, many nations around the world have also been trying to grapple with, and they're happy to come here and just share their thinking and their thoughts with us. These are things that we shouldn't take for granted, and hopefully there'll be people who will just take the time out of their day to just hear from other people.
So how do the stories that we hear at PeepSec events impact the work that we do at CybSafe?
At PeepSec, we get to hear from so many great people, many of whom have really put not just a lot of thought into their areas of expertise, but actually taken active steps, proactive steps to really address some of the world's biggest problems. At CybSafe, we are building security software that is going to fundamentally transform the way society addresses the human aspect of cybersecurity. But we don't want to do that in a vacuum. As I said, it's really important that we build responsible technology. It's really important that we have empathy, not just in principle, but actually in practice, in the case of our software and the way it helps people make better decisions, helps influence security behaviors, helps organizations understand their risk. And the stories and the conversations and the lessons that we've seen at PeepSec over the last few years, and this year is no different, have been really impactful because we've just learned so much from so many people who've either made mistakes and shared them with us, or who have given us a glimpse into their frameworks and mental models, or helped us really understand, in some cases, some perspectives that we had not necessarily thought about until we heard from them.
Absolutely. Well, look, Oz, it's been absolutely great speaking with you, and thanks for everything with PeepSec. It's just amazing to see how it's gone year on year. And as someone who's only recently joined CybSafe, it's just been such an amazing project to see and be a part of. So yeah, thank you for your time.
Yeah, thanks you. It's really good.
Great. For more information about Oz, the CybSafe tribe, and all things PeepSec, please visit peepsec.com. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.